Mabu, hi, Kamustika, welcome. How are you? This is Bob from Loving on the Sea. Welcome to this live stream on what we have now, the second Monday of December. I have been gone from work for about 10 weeks, but starting tomorrow, bright and early, I have to change my ways and go back to normal. So I think the knee replacement has gone okay now, and the nerve damage in the foot is bearable. So we're going to try that. And so this will be my last, unrushed live stream. And so what we're going to get into tonight, and I will try to keep this a lot shorter so that, people might want to go over to the community corner message forums and pick this up over there and talk about that. Or, that you can sign up there and you can even do direct messaging with each other. And that link, as you see there off to the right side in the live chat, that's the third one down, community corner. And newsletter, you can sign up for newsletter and get notified of the next live streams, what it's going to be about, some analytics, a classic video, most recent video, just things like that. And it'll go straight to your email, so you don't have to really, keep up with YouTube notifications, which is easy to lose track of. So I have a couple of points there. By the way, I have a new shirt Aiza got for me on Black Friday, 3 or 4 shirts. She definitely buys things that stretch me a little bit, but that's okay. I kind of get used. Thanks for the thumbs up. I kind of get used to everything being more or less the same. So we're going to break out her shirt here tonight. There's 2 points before I get into this topic about the crisis of young men that I would welcome people to join in and talk about. And you can see that at the top. I can see it too. We are confused on how to act like a man. This leads us not knowing how to get women partners. We have no role models to look as a reference to, and that's just, you'll see in the commentary from Mr. E that I'm going to read, that can result as part of this crisis. And another one there, we feel ashamed about who we are because of how society demonizes male identity and marginalizes us, i.e. legal system, unfair playing field, etc. And so I will go into that more with Mr. E's commentary. I don't think it will take too long to read. And I think it will be very important to start with that so people can kind of form an idea of what they want to say about this topic, the crisis of young men. And of course, we need to talk about a solution to this crisis. We know that things are worse. From watching television, things have changed. Just growing up, if you're my age, things are happening now that never used to. Young men are growing up in single-family homes without a father around, and I definitely think that makes a big difference in the scheme of things. So before I get into that, just wanted to welcome people here tonight and encourage you, after listening to the commentary, I want to talk about the crisis of young men. If you're an older man, but you see what's going on and you're bothered by some things in the West, just listen to the commentary in a bit. Comment about your concerns about the young men. If you're a young man yourself, then by all means, leave a comment. I won't know necessarily who's a young man and who isn't, but this is just something we want to talk about because, I want to help men find a wife. That's my thing. I had a problem. I didn't have people when I grew up kind of pushing me into marriage or relationships. And, when you're really young, you don't know any better, but you also would like to see certain things happen that can be really good examples to you. Thank you, Parabiology 101. I hope your back is feeling better. I found out I got some bulging discs in my neck today, which, isn't a surprise. Um, but I hope you're able to go on that trip just as soon as you can to the Philippines. That ties into the topic here today because some of us maybe are feeling like we're getting a late start in life. Maybe we find some good information, but it's later, and we're at that age where it seems like we've lost our opportunity to get married. When you're really younger, I think that's the best opportunity, but sometimes we don't gather these things until later. We don't have good influences in our life, and then we wonder what can we possibly do about it. So I'm going to, um, without further ado, read Mr. E's script. He's very concerned about this, and I said I would be glad to share his thoughts, and then let's talk about them afterwards. Um, so he said there's a crisis that young men are dealing with today that may be best resolved finding a wife overseas, just like I did. Things were tough for me for several decades, as you may know, and I think they're probably worse now. I want to hear your comments on here, on YouTube, or in the community corner message forums. There is an alternative, a solution to these woes that we'll talk about later. Subscribe to Love Beyond the Sea. No matter the changes in the West, many men are still able to get what they want and need. They just have to go about it differently than they have in the past. And here's Mr. E's comments or commentary. Your comments on what he says are welcome. Within the course of the past decade, there has been an accelerated growth of hate by society towards men, spearheaded by the media. Every single day, there is some news story, tweet, or comment about how evil men are. Society has grouped men under the umbrella of characteristics that maybe a few bad apples have within our ranks. From cradle to grave in modern American society, men are taught how they are disposable and how bad they are for just existing. Young boys in America are shamed for their very nature. Boys can go longer, explore, and become men because society won't allow it. Young men no longer have a rite of passage like their ancestors, be it their first hunt with their father, getting the keys to grandpa's old muscle car, or even just going out alone in the world and having their shackles freed just a little. Young boys, men, are no longer free to explore the world and understand what it means to be a man. We are constantly shamed with the term of toxic masculinity, which is described as a man who is sexually aggressive, assertive, and is a go-getter. In short, the opposite of a wimp and a hipster, also known as a new male or a soy boy. What is so wrong with being a cowboy, a roughneck, living up to the archetype of traditional masculine role models of old, like John Wayne, Marlon Brando, Clint Eastwood, or Al Pacino? With a constant barrage from talking heads on the media about how the future is female and how all men are dangerous predators that should be locked up for just displaying sexual interest in a woman, many men, especially young men, are lost and confused in this dystopian world. Due to this suppression of male identity, young men are ill-equipped to face the challenges of manhood, especially when it comes to relationships with the opposite sex. With every man monitored and scrutinized, a harmless, friendly touch on the wrist to a woman he is sexually attracted to in this day often leaves men terrified, as the consequences of getting things wrong weighs heavily on his mind. This is due to the poor souls who, rightly or wrongly, have been crucified in the media in this post-Me Too era, with masculine role models and coming-of-age stories demonized in Hollywood and often growing up in single mother homes. Many young men today are unsure of how to conduct themselves, leading to often very dramatic and often violent outbursts. With this constant barrage of demonization from the media, the workplace, and social media, this has had a very disastrous effect on the male psyche, with male suicide rates well beyond epidemic levels and a significant rise in poor socialization, leading to many young men being shut-ins and incels, and the systemic destruction of male-only spaces. These very serious problems spell doom for the future of our society. While this may or may not be a surprise to this audience, it is something that has long been neglected and not discussed within our society. The media and the rest of society needs to stop the demonization of our boys, young men in general. This requires no more shows depicting fathers as bumbling idiots and allowing fathers equal opportunity to be with their children and be involved in their lives. While this is unlikely to happen, this needs to happen to avoid the cataclysm that awaits us. Bob's channel, Love Beyond the Sea, is about providing solutions. Here are some things that need to change immediately in society and are solutions to these problems experienced by young men. Be thinking about your own here. One would be give men credit where credit is due. Give men credit where credit is due. We build society, we toil away so everyone, including women, can enjoy a better life. Number two, no more double standards and true fair treatment. No more double standards and true fair treatment. Just like women have specific shelters for domestic violence and a safety net, men should be awarded the same treatment. Number three, no more affirmative action. No more affirmative action. Jobs should be merit based. Who is the most talented, regardless of gender, should get the job. No more hiring quotas. Number four, false rape accusations should be punished just as hard as actual rape. False rape accusations should be punished just as hard as actual rape. Many young men have had their lives destroyed by women who think it is funny to cry wolf. Due to our legal system's bias towards men, many young men go through the grinder of American justice with little recourse. Even when vindicated women are given slaps on the wrist in comparison to the crime they are alleging. This needs to end. And I'll mention one more from Mr. E. Number five, fair and equal treatment during divorce proceedings, as well as taking out the for-profit motive in the judicial system. Fair and equal treatment during divorce proceedings, as well as taking out the for-profit motive in the judicial system. Men should have equal rights and opportunity to be awarded their children. Children should not be awarded automatically to mothers. While this list is unlikely ever to materialize unless there is societal collapse, the next best option is to vote with your feet. There are still places in the world where the man is respected and is given credit in society. The Philippines just so happens to be one of those places. I can attest. For those young men who feel neglected and betrayed by their society, I wholly encourage you to take your money, expertise, intelligence, and resources elsewhere where you are still valued. You do not have to feel shame about who you are as a man or your sexual identity as a man. Women still appreciate men who know what they want and express sexual interest in them. You will not be harshly rejected or hit with a restraining order as long as you conduct yourself in a proper civilized manner. Women elsewhere are dying to meet high quality men such as yourself, just as long as you can prove you're a good a good leader, provider, and can offer her security to her and the children you may have with her. The Western world is at a crossroads. Things must change in society and things must become fairer for both young and old. Western women cannot be hypocritical of the young men of today who take their ball and go elsewhere and should examine how they treat the men in their lives. If she has ever rejected a good, decent man for a ride on the carousel, she no longer has a reason to complain when she is post-wall and lonely. Additionally, if Western women want Western men to return to the plantation bargaining table, or whatever anecdotal term you want to throw in there, they must aggressively denounce their feminist sisters' actions and words. While I would like things to change, it is unlikely. So, if you are tired of your current dating prospects, where you live, take a trip or join an online international dating site and diversify your dating life. There's absolutely nothing wrong with diversification and expanding your boundaries. Young men, the world awaits. This concludes the commentary. So now I want to get to your comments. I know Mr. E was very serious about this topic and the state of young men today in society. So we wanted to do this commentary, and I want to hear what other people have to think of it. Um, yeah, Parabiology 101. These things can take a while. Sometimes our our disc injuries can disappear quickly, and other times they can last for a long time. You don't know why they come and why they go. January, February for a trip to the Philippines, and very good. We'll be leaving the day after Christmas on the 26th and go for about 3 weeks. And I'm glad you enjoy those points by Mr. E. And this topic tonight, I hope we have some more people come over, because um, I mean, I notice young men like I've never noticed them before on YouTube, talking about how difficult it is to get a relationship going. Now, I felt it was difficult during my 20s, 30s, 40s, and we got into my 50s, and I realized that, you know, I don't know what it was. Was it me? Was it somebody else? But for whatever reason, I guess you could call it rejected, for lack of a better term. We talked about that last time on a live stream. And I don't know, maybe women today just don't like the idea of being pursued. Maybe they assume everybody that wants to go out with them is a potential problem. I don't know. Um, yes, Mystery, if you're out there, Parabiology 101, let me know what you think, Parabiology 101. I mean, I know your age. You're not as old as I am, but what are your reflections as you went through, growing up here? I think you're from America. What do you notice about young men? One thing I can interject here is about role models. And I wish growing up I actually had more role models. I mean, I usually had at least one during any period of years, but that might not have started until, I was in my 30s, which is not a bad age to have a role model. And then sometimes they would die. And then I would go to another church. I would find somebody else that would listen to me, hear me out, and not kind of just want me to disappear. My concern was, I really wanted to get married, and I had a hard time dealing with not being able to find somebody. Okay, so you can't find anybody. What do you do with yourself? Mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. It didn't make any sense. If this was supposed to be best and the right thing to do, that you often hear in church, well, what answers did anybody have for me? Well, you know, a lot of people didn't really seem like they wanted to get into the talk about how hard it was being alone. And admittedly, they were married. They probably had children. Sometimes, they had been married and their spouses had passed away a long time ago. And but I don't know. Thankfully, there was usually one person at a time who would listen to me and hear me out, not blow up at me if I got upset and was ranting and raving, which I frequently did because I didn't know what to do. Hello there, New York Mets fan, 2006. Did you change your name? Or has it always been 2006? It might be just the way I look at it here. I thought it was 2005. Um, but no, you probably haven't changed it. Now, we're talking about the crisis of young men. I don't know anybody's situation out there, but I would like to talk about your thoughts on do you see young men growing up today, having it like you did when you were younger? What's the difference when you were growing up, maybe in the 60s or 70s, and and the way people are growing up today. I mentioned Mr. E's thoughts in the commentary. Born and raised in California, women have changed drastically from my parents' generation. Can't find a traditional woman these days. So in that case, Parabiology 101, you can't find a traditional woman. Um, did you, now you're older, but I wonder how many people today are saying, well, you know what, you're exactly right. You can't find a traditional woman, so you gotta keep looking. In fact, you have to look somewhere else, but don't give up that desire to find someone, because that type of encouragement is what is needed. Well, that's good to hear. I kind of got a little experience um, here, and so I'm going to dispose of this person because I do not particularly like them. Let's see. Maybe this is what I need to do. All right, you get the trolls. That's probably a good thing, and people can. I don't know. You strike a chord, I guess, and I think overall that's a good thing. Um, Same name. Well, good for you. I never know what people's screen names stand for. Usually we don't change them. Some people do, and they go like Bear Man, and he probably has 10 or 15 accounts just saying nonsense. But traditional women, it's important to find a traditional woman. I mean, it's important to want a traditional woman if you don't want to have a lot of headaches. And all I was told about this was, well, this is the type of woman you should look for. And it's like, well, where do I find such a person? There's nobody here in church. Um, Nobody knows anybody even that can say, well, here. Well, I mean, I was introduced a time or two, but you know, um, that wasn't going to work out, I guess. And so I was 53 before anybody suggested, well, you may have to go to another country. And now, if they had suggested that in my 20s and 30s, I probably would have said, well, I'm not going to go to another country. I can find somebody here, can't I? And slowly but surely, some of my friends were getting married, and then it was just me. And then who was I going to hang out with? So fortunately, the pastor at the church I'm at now said that, hey, here's an article. I'm trying to help you any way I can because I know you will try if I can come up with a good idea, which I did. And it was about a man that found something in the Philippines. And so I thought, I'm not going to give up. I'm completely desperate. Some people commit suicide over being alone. But this person, instead of saying, well, Bob, you just got to suck it up. Bob, you just have to deal with it and be content. And, growing older and being alone, being single isn't the worst thing in life. Um, I kind of thought it was pretty close to that. And but here's the thing. With me, it wasn't so much, that I thought there was anything wrong per se with being single. My goal wasn't necessarily get unsingle; it was to get married. Why? Because I figured that was the right pursuit. You don't want to run away from something, because if you're running away from something as a single person, you may not find it in marriage, because in marriage you have responsibilities for the other person, and I didn't know of anything specifically that was holding me back, that I had to stop and severely work on, because I had always wanted to get married. I kind of wanted to learn how to be a good husband. So he said, well, I'm not going to tell you to do this, but here's an example of someone going to the Philippines. So I took him up on it, and it did not take long for me to sign up on a dating site. After a few days of trying to see which ones there were out there, there's tons of them. But since I was a Christian, I said, well, I'm a Christian, I'm looking for a Filipina. Okay, Christian Filipina. And that's the one I joined up with on March 13th, 2015. And, 54 days later, I was married. And so what ended the drought, what helped me to go from famine to feast, was a man, older man, but not even my age, had a big family. And he said, I agree with you. You're better off as a married person. Marriage has great benefits. It's not easy, probably disappoint you the most because you're so, going to be into your wife and your family. But I didn't want to disappoint him because this man had gone out of his way for about a year before that, trying different things, suggesting different things. And we would take a look at those things. And it just, it didn't work until it was the Philippines. So I do think going overseas and looking for a wife is the solution. I know many people are doing that. Some of my subscribers are doing that. And I think middle-aged and older men should, consider doing that if they're looking for a good woman, more like a traditional woman. But they still need to know how to treat her if they want to have it be successful. But I also have a concern for young people because even though it's been a while, I can still kind of remember what it was like when I was in my 20s and 30s and completely baffled and frustrated, like I was going to go out of my mind and wondering, just what is the solution? Well, I didn't hear about overseas until I was older, and I took advantage of it. And I do think that a lot of younger guys, unless they want to miss out, they should consider some place like the Philippines. And I have a couple of videos for young men because they do have advantages. And I point those advantages out in those videos over guys like me, who was 53 at the time. One of them is called Make a Filipina Your First Choice to Marry. And then another one was called Can a Young Man Find Love in the Philippines? Well, the answer is yes. And more people are noticing an influx of young people in the Philippines. Now, I married a Filipina, so I mentioned the Philippines quite a bit. And but other young men are going all over the place in different parts of the country. And New York Mets fan, I am ready. I mean, tomorrow is, well, let's say today's the 9th because tomorrow's not here. 17 days. Now I'm getting nervous. 17 days. We're going to be making those 4 flights. 4 flights, about 26 hours of time in the plane. And that's fast. That is rocket fast from here in Nebraska because you got to have 4 flights. And a couple of the layovers aren't very long, but it seems like there's always one longer one. And then you've got your layovers. And so this can be a 32, 33, 34 hours of travel. And that's doing pretty good. I just have to accept that and get used to that. Remember to take some pain pills and try to enjoy the experience. So I've been there 3 times, New York Mets fan. And it's been a year and a half. And I can still feel and see what it was like walking on that land that we purchased for our house. The house is now built, and we're going to live in there with some of her family too. So we'll try to take plenty of uploads there that people can see what that's like. So yeah, I'm kind of chomping at the bit, kind of nervous about going back to work though. It's been 10 weeks. Dave Knutson, welcome, Dave. Glad you're here tonight, talking about the crisis of young men today in the West. What are your feelings about having kids this late in life? Notice Filipinos are still willing to have children in their 40s. Absolutely. Because Having a child is very, very important. In their 40s, though, there's going to be a concern of and a greater chance of birth defects. Now, I did a video on this called Should Age Gap Relationships Have Children? And I talked some about my own personal situation. And I talked, theologically about that, because a lot of people have very strong feelings about this and about being irresponsible past a certain age. Yet, you have to be careful with that, because there's nothing, theologically that would say you're being foolish or sinful. But in anything, you gotta go over all these items. It's going to depend on the person, Dave. Parabiology says he's 47 and really wants to have children. I'm 58, and just leaving it up to me, I do not want to have children. And I've told my wife, who is 31, that I told her that, though, from the start. I did not say I'm not going to have children, or I'm going to resist having children, because I love my wife, and she's the one that wants to have children because she's a woman, and that's part of the things I like about her. Being a so-called traditional woman, she thinks it's very important, very natural, normal to have a baby, and she wants to have a baby with me. I went 30 years alone trying to just find somebody that would go out with me so we could start a relationship. And now I had somebody, a lot younger, that wanted to have a baby with me. My baby. You go from rejection for all those years to somebody wanting to have a baby with you, wanting you to be the father of that child and wanting to raise them together. That's a pretty big change. So, what do I think about it? That's a great question, by the way, Dave. They have to both want it, or at least, like in my case, one of them has to be willing to do it. I'm not concerned about this idea of, well, let's see, if you have the child when you're 60, you're going to be gone at 72 or 74 or 76. It'd be nice to know I could live that long, and it would still be worth having a baby, in my opinion. Why? Because I don't believe I have to be in that child's life. And this kind of relates to what we're talking about tonight. I don't believe I have to be in that child's life till they are 20 years old. The reason I say that is, I think the influence that a parent can have on a child is going to have to be instilled well before they're 20 years old. You can get to a point where they're 18, 20 years old, and if they're not going a certain way, they may not. And the reason I say that is because of the Bible verse, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. The word old means to have hair on your chin. And so it's not talking about somebody, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years old. It's talking about the age of an adolescent. So I believe what that verse is saying is, parents, you better invest yourself in those kids before they, 12, 13, 14 years old. And so the way I rationalize it is, if I could have, 13, 14 years with them, I could instill everything in them that they're going to need to know when they're in the world, and have to make some tough decisions and deal with temptation and know what's right and wrong. So the amount of time I would be with that child doesn't bother me. Now, if I get to be 63 or 64 and we haven't had a child, then I think you have to reevaluate things. In parabiology's case, he may not have to be that's concerned about birth defects. The birth defects, by that I mean autism. Um, what's another one? Down syndrome. That can be, that will go up when you're older, like my age. However, that doesn't always happen. And the closer a woman gets to 40, then she's kind of in the same boat. And the likelihood of having something like that happen is higher. Does that mean they should say, no, this is stupid, we can't do this? No, there's no reason to reject having children, even in that situation. The situation I would be against, I mean, if the guy is not in great shape, then he might not, he might not have a healthy child, and he may not live long on top of that. Um, if he can teach right and wrong to that child, he can get a lot done in a short period of time. Well, let's say before junior high age or outside of junior high age. So I don't subscribe to the when you're 80, they can't do anything with you and go out and play with you. I don't think that's the most important thing. I think the most important thing is what you teach them. And part of me is, would like a chance at that, Dave, but honestly, I don't think much about it until there's a reason to. I just know I'm willing. I'm not going to interfere with that. I know I haven't been able to. However, we are trying to do something about that, and maybe one day this will happen for the sake of my wife. I think it's the right thing to do. I do think that part of getting married should be to raise a family. The birth rate, we're not even replacing children these days because the birth rate is so low in this country. I think I mentioned that or somebody mentioned it to me if I didn't mention it in a video. So that's a concern. And it may happen. But tell me, Dave, I want to hear what you think about this too. I just, it's a tough call because I'm not 20 years old. That doesn't mean that birth defects can't happen with young parents, couples in their 20s, because it can. You just don't know. In general, Dave, I think having children is good for the marriage, and it's certainly good for the children. And those parents, led by fathers, can instill morals and values and wisdom in those children, which I think we're seeing a lack of today, as mentioned in Mr. E's commentary, because the dads aren't there. The dads maybe their mothers are telling them their dads are, less than nothing or something. But yeah, thanks, Big E. I'll let Aiza know about the shirt. It says 23, and I don't know what it says as far as anything else other than the number. I can't even tell from here because it's backwards. It looks like a hockey shirt to me, and I always kind of wanted a hockey shirt, even though they're just a little different. But yeah, my wife got me about 5 shirts on Black Friday, so I'm glad you appreciate that. Abraham was in his 80s when he had Isaac, Big E. Abraham and Sarah are the only couples in the Bible mentioned where their age is mentioned, because I think there was a 10-year difference, and he may have been older than that. He may have been 90. They were so old it was physically impossible, which is the point God was trying to make, that it was going to be a miraculous birth from Isaac. Para and I have 2 kids, one at 50 and a 3-month-old at 52. Well, thanks for letting me know that, Big E, because I mean I'm not 52, but it can be done. There's nothing wrong with that, and it's interesting that men can continue to have children later in life. the issue though becomes the sperm and the health of the sperm. Um, I don't know what the medical term is, but there are more problems, I guess, with each generation. And doesn't mean bad things will happen. But congratulations to you, Big E. And brainwaves, CJ, brains in theta waves till 7 years old, heavily. What do you mean by that exactly? Um, I'm not up on the brain and study the brain. I know they say an older, or not older, but a male's brain develops at about 25. Um, but I think morally speaking, that needs to be that they need to be prepared for that when they're young. Like I was saying about adolescent age, I think you've probably done all that you can do by then, and that's when you certainly want to do that, because there gets a point when it just gets too late to rehabilitate, so to speak, someone. Um, that would be interesting. I would be kind of scared and kind of nervous, but I think it's my wife wants a baby, and I want to please my wife. I think it's good for us. I can actually come up with more pros than I can cons on the issue if I try to be objective, and that's what I'm trying to do. Big E and Cebu, in my case, both kids are girls, very healthy and big for their age. They also have no Filipino characteristics. And you are a Filipino, Big E. It kind of looks like it from your very small picture that I can see here. They probably are. They just look 100% American. Yeah, what would my children look like? I don't know. That would be, I bet that was a big moment. um, when you were, what did you say, 50 and 52? Yeah, one at 50 and one at 52. That must have been pretty exciting for you, Big E. And I'm sure that would turn my world upside down. But if it's good for my wife, if it's good for me, I have this method of making decisions that it's in my video vault of 220 videos I've already written. I just haven't produced them. One of them is on how I make decisions, and that would be what's best for my wife, what's best for us as a couple, and then last priority would be what's best for me. Now, I would like to see her perspective be what's best for me, what's best for us as a couple, and then lastly, what's best for her. And so then in the marriage, the, the more you can somehow meet in the middle, where you're both trying to do what's best for the other, and you're understanding how important the relationship is. And so, you don't want to make a decision that's good for one, but it's not good for the other person, and it's not good for you as a couple. Those automatically are not good decisions, and you don't want to make those. Yeah, Big E. I'm open to it. I don't. I'm not young enough. I'm not old enough yet to say, "Hun, we're just gonna scrap this idea." Because although my wife says she's content, that may be just saying that, and maybe she is. But deep down inside, like most women, especially if they're only 31, they want a baby, and I just simply have to understand that's normal for her. And Dave Knutson, I'm 44. The lady I've been chatting just turned 36 today, and she asked me if I still wanted children, so it got me thinking. But I think it should be discussed before marriage. Yeah, I know. And you know what, Dave? If you can pull up that video I did, just I go into YouTube and put in should age gap relationships have children, and it should pop up in there, even though I don't have 20,000 subscribers. but I don't know that a lot of videos have been made on that where they're looking at the pros and cons and trying to be objective about it, looking at it medically, looking at it theologically, which is what I tried to do. So Dave, maybe that video can help you, tighten things up a bit or firm up a decision. I know I had to put my money where my mouth was, and when I did the video, I had to obviously interject my own situation, or what's the point of doing a video on that topic? So yeah, in your case, 44, man, I'd be raring to go. Um, but we're 58 and 31 respectively. Parabiology 101, Down syndrome and autism chance a lot lower with older men and young women than any age man with older women. And that could be true. I mean, I've seen there are some conflicting reports on this, on whether a birth defect would be more with the women or more with the man. Um, I mean, and sometimes you have to kind of factor in, and I might have mentioned this in a video too, that if you have certain issues in the family, could be mental issues or some other type of issues in the family, you need to toss that out there. You just have to be honest about things. Um, well, I appreciate the sentiments there, Big E. I'm not as fit as I used to be. I just got done having my 10th surgery. Um, Back to work tomorrow, though, so we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I hope you're right, because I am concerned about Down syndrome. My wife, before we got married, was actually a teacher for Down, special ed teacher for Down syndrome children. So, not that I want to give her, experience with that. And I'm not saying that people that have Down syndrome children and autism aren't blessed, because I'm sure they are. Um, I know a couple at work. Well, the woman works there, and they had children. I'm sure they were a lot younger than me, but they both have their children have some health issues, and it sounds like it's go to work and then spend 4 or 5 hours a day with their children, and that's it, day after day after day after day. And she was talking to me about how much she had learned from that, and it was actually a good experience, and the benefits of going through that, something that on the outside you would think, well, man, I wouldn't want that. That sounds terrible. And what did she tell me? She said, well, God knew what he was doing, or God must have known what he was doing when he brought us together and allowed this to happen. Um, and there is no doubt some truth to that. Uh, Dorian B. turned 30, never had a girlfriend. Always thought I was picky with women. That's understandable. But then I went to the Philippines and saw they all had qualities I was looking for. Well, that's great, Dorian B. In today's day and age, being 30 and not having had a girlfriend is not that rare. Now, I did have a girlfriend at 23 and 24, and that's when my drought started, when that relationship ended. And then it was like, what did I do? At first, I thought maybe I just missed it because I was too old. You'd say, well, you're not too old, but a lot of people by that time, they get out of college and they know who it's going to be, or they move. And they get their life underway. And if you don't have somebody by then, and then it's tougher, and it probably is. But 30, there's people today, Dorian, that would say, hey, man, you're 30, no big deal. You got lots of time. And I'm sure I was told that, which kind of missed the point that I had been wanting, to be married for a long time, and that didn't really make me feel better. So that kind of goes in the category of cliche. Well, you got lots of time. All right. Well, I don't know. I did a video called "Is It Too Late to Find a Filipina for Love?" Because one of the many factors we all have to consider in our life is how much time do we have left? And I don't know how much time I have left. Um, I also know that the older you get, I know this now, the more things start to break down. And the more you start to see people dying that you went to school with, and they're the same age. So that's a factor in a relationship. I just think the earlier the better, the younger the better. Okay, but now you're 30, and you're not 18 anymore, or 20 or 22. So like you did, Dorian, you looked to the Philippines, went to the Philippines actually, and the qualities there, I think, make it easier to get married. I don't think can be disputed. You can find women there who want to be a good wife. They want to be a good lover. They want to be taken care of. They want to be a man to respect them, and they want to respect the man. They want to have a good household, and just wonderful things like that. And that's what I found. And all you need is one, just one Filipina or some other country. There's other potential in other places. Um, it should be known. And I don't know at what age. I mean, at 30, you can keep you like you did. A person that's 30 can keep their eyes open and at least start doing some research on it, um, because it won't take long before 30 becomes 40, and 40 becomes 50, and you find out, well, I was spending all my time working or going to the gym or something like that, trying to uh, bide my time, deal with the pain, meet people maybe, and it didn't happen. And next thing you know, it's like, wow, I'm on the other half now. I'm in the third quarter of my life, or even later. So I'm all for helping encourage young men to go to the Philippines, study somewhere else, to look for someone. I can help you with understanding Filipinas because I have to. I have to know. I believe in understanding your wife, and her culture is a big part of that. How she grew up, is a big part of that. Her family dynamics is important. Um, Sometimes I don't know, I never really thought, Dorian, I was too picky. I know people speculate that. Well, you must be too picky. You're not a terrible looking guy. You must have unrealistic standards. Um, I didn't think my standards were too unrealistic. Now, I did prefer a woman that didn't drink alcohol. Um, I saw enough from alcoholism in my family that I wanted nothing to do with that. I saw enough of it in other people's lives I knew. I wanted nothing to do with that. And so I just told myself, well, a deal breaker would be alcohol. And I'm not going to judge or condemn someone if they can, you know, drink alcohol in moderation. I just saw what it can do when they don't, and I didn't want to risk that in marriage. And yet, I almost got to the point I felt like if I don't renege on that deal breaker, I'm never going to find anybody because you go on the dating sites and like, yeah, everybody wants you out. And how many times do you drink a week? They'll say, well, only 2 or 3 times a week. And some would say, 4 or 5 times a week. Maybe they weren't serious. Maybe they were, but it's almost impossible to find someone that doesn't drink. And for me, that was a deal breaker that I guess I was willing to bend on because nobody was like that. But my wife is like that. She went to a company dinner the other day, which she doesn't like to go to, but she had no choice. And at some restaurant or bar, and they offered her a drink, and she said, "No, I don't drink." So, good girl, she turned that down. Now the comments are being blocked by notifications for dental implants, so we will get rid of that. You have to have some some things that you must haves, and maybe some deal breakers. I know some people will say, well, hey, the reason you're still single, you're too picky. You need to just let it fly open and, anybody and everybody. And that's just not it. I found my wife by saying, this is what I'm looking for. This is what I'm like. This is the type of marriage I want to have. You know, we got engaged in 18 days and got married. Dorian, this is Parabiology 101. Dorian B. I encourage you to look for a Filipina. They are so much nicer and more traditional than Western women, but you must find a good one. There are bad ones too, and this is absolutely true. Aiza tells me there are bad ones out there, and I always thought she could have a business called Private Eye. Aiza, I is short for Aiza. Private Eye, where she investigates, talks to men about the women that they're involved with, and then she would know probably some signs to look for. Uh, just a thought. But a more traditional, I think that's what I have. Now my wife works because we don't have a baby, as we talked about earlier. And she works hard and she works long and she works well and she's respected. But that doesn't stop her from cooking like she did this morning. That doesn't stop her from cleaning. And by and large, other than the dishes, she really doesn't ask me to help her with vacuuming or anything else. And I'm not sure why, but that's generally okay with me. But I do the laundry most of the time, and um, she takes care of pretty much everything else. Dorian B, very true. With anywhere you go, only problem is making the time to keep going back. Work is always in the way. And if you're talking about going back to the Philippines, it's vacation. Um, and depending on how long your travel is, I mean, I don't know, maybe if you're young enough, you can get a lot out of a week. But I know when we went once for 2 weeks. It was like 14 or 15 days. And you subtract the travel from that, the airports, and the jet lag. And it feels like we just got here. Now we got to turn around and come back. Nevertheless, you know, having a good role model, I think, would be telling someone, what what can you do to find a wife? Don't lower your standards. Certainly don't, take advantage of women or hate women. Um, it's a big planet. Somebody encouraged me, or not encouraged me, they offered it up as a possibility, and that they weren't going to be pushy. All they knew is I really wanted to get married, and they didn't have to push me. I thought about it and thought, well, why not? What have I got to lose? What do I have to gain? And I'm glad this mentor of mine helped me to not give up and pursue marriage. And I did. Dorian B, very true. Okay, I read that comment already. Sorry. Aaron Taylor, welcome, Aaron. You are now in Tagum. Wow, are you going to be there? When are you coming back, Aaron? Because I wouldn't mind meeting you, except we won't actually set foot in Davao until the 28th of December. I know you won't be staying there forever, but Tagum is one of the places we would like to go. It's just impossible to know if it would be in late December, which it could be, or maybe we go there for New Year's. I don't know, maybe New Year's is probably better in Davao. I don't know, but I definitely want to go. Filipinos are good to go. J Bud 5000 is here, another fan of Tagum City. You like my fiancés. You do need to finish that statement, J Bud. Filipinos are good to go. I really like my fiancés. Fiancés, that's what it says, J Bud. I need to know what that means. Michael and Heidi is here. Michael and Heidi, another, I would say, young man, relatively young man, who like parabiology, who like Big Rob and some others, and there are others, they're just not here right now, that have decided, you know what, I'm not waiting around anymore. Like Bob and Mr. E suggest, I want this so bad. I'm going to do what other people have already done, and that's look to another country. I appreciate the thumbs up tonight. Okay, mid-January, Aaron. Thanks. We're flying back on the 17th. So at least we're leaving Davao. We won't fly out of Manila till early morning, like early morning on the 18th. So that's possible. Appreciate you telling me that. I do want to see it because that's where I want to know where she went to school. Let's pop in on some relatives. Um, I've shown her around here, where I went to school and, favorite places of mine, where I used to live, even. Um, and so I'm really interested in that. I'd like to see that. So glad you're here, Michael and Heidi. And Aaron, I hope we can meet you and your wife while we're there. Big E and Cebu, when you live here, you see the whole picture. Many are good, but like anywhere, there are plenty of bad apples too. So, Big E, would you mind doing me a favor? And maybe you could share a couple of things that a guy going to the Philippines would want to know about recognizing the bad apples, because it still happens where, you know, they apparently don't see what others can see, and they get in trouble. Okay, Aaron, I will look for that, because I would like to meet some people while we're out there. But Big E, what do you see out there that you would say, watch out for this? Um, and while I said that, I think the way somebody dresses, that's yet another video I haven't released yet, but the way somebody dresses um, is gives a clue. I think many Filipinas, they don't try to attract attention themselves, probably like you think I'm doing with this shirt. I'm wearing this because Aiza bought it. It looks like a cross between pajamas and a hockey shirt or something, but it's a comfortable short sleeve shirt. And um, the way somebody dresses, I think the way they talk or the things they talk about, the places they go, if they talk highly of their parents or their family, those could be some tip offs there. And a lot of guys, though, Big E, they're not going to live there. They might get 2 or 3 weeks and then leave and then come back, and they just might not see everything because they don't have their boots on the ground for very long. Yep, I'll do that, Aaron. I don't want to forget, because I've got work tomorrow and my mind is kind of on that as soon as this will be done. And we'll try to get in touch with you. Dave Knutson says, I've chatted some of the bad ones, but I have an open mind, not all the same. The longer you chat, and especially are in person, I know it's easy to judge. You can see somebody together, and the first thought is, oh boy, I don't know about her. But maybe you just need to spend more time with her. Maybe she comes off a certain way, or she's one way on camera, but totally not that way in person. So, the best thing is to meet them first, which isn't what I did. I figured I'd talked to them so much, to my wife on Skype, that I didn't need to know anymore, and I was going to keep learning anyway. So, let's just get married. I didn't see a single red flag. I didn't have any reason to think that there might be something up, or that she might be taking advantage of me or anything like that. I just didn't see it. Jay Bud, still waiting to hear from you to finish this sentence. Filipinas are good to go. I really like my fiancés. That's what it looks like to me. Big E and Cebu, as an example, many are bar girls. You need to find someone with a job, who had goals, has a spiritual dimension, deep family ties, etc., how they act in person. So, you're describing my wife, Big E, and obviously those things were important to you as they were to me. It wasn't so much the age, even though I did want a younger woman. And yes, you can find a younger woman with qualities like that. Um, Jobs can be difficult to find. Um, you know, some guys say, well, she's got to go to college. Well, that might be necessary in a lot of places to find a job. Maybe even working at Jollibee's, they might want you to have gone to school, college, for that. And my wife had a job, and she had other jobs, but the one she was doing, special needs teacher, was important to her, and I've she works now here, but she gave that up so that we could focus on each other and get married, which was what we did. She has goals. My wife, Big E, is the older daughter, and so she already has to bear the burden um, to go out and work, and that's the person they look to for help, and so she's responsible, and that's something she's going to carry over into our relationship, and that's something she's going to carry and extend into her job here, which is good. Um, if I think you're playing it safe to find somebody that has a job, although sometimes it's not necessarily something that they can control, depending on where they live. And the spiritual dimension is important, or I wouldn't have married her. Deep family ties, yeah, anytime she's not, I don't know, it's just so ingrained in the culture. Parents are so important, the family is so important. Um, it would be very odd not to see that. How they act in person, of course, you want them to be consistent, the same way in person that you've grown to know um, on camera. Tag and Messiah girls are the best. Well, Jay Bud, my wife would agree with you 100%. And Big E and Cebu have seen endless casualties with guys who have unrealistic expectations. Unrealistic expectations of the relationship, Big E, or unrealistic expectations of the woman, the Filipina that they're pursuing. Um, Unrealistic expectations. I once had someone tell me you shouldn't have any expectations in a relationship because you're going to be very disappointed. And I can maybe wrap part of my brain around that, but by the same token, if you have expectations, then if each of you have expectations, you're more likely to live up to a certain standard that will help carry you through the relationship. Um, Expectations. Well, like expectations like she's not going to expect monetary help for her family would be completely unrealistic, because she's going to want the help, whether it comes from the foreigner or her going to his country and working. It's a big aspect of it for a Filipina, is that help for the family, because how else are they going to get it? And the Filipino will often sacrifice her own health, for the good of the family, which is not a good idea. Big E and Cebu, when you go from endless bad dating experiences or no dating in the USA, and suddenly you come here and you are a rock star, remember, okay, that it's not real. Thank you for clarifying. You eventually have to go back, sure. And all of a sudden we had a big jump there, and I need to get back to you so I don't lose your place here. I'm sorry. Oh, yeah, that can play with your mind because, you have a lot of rejection here in the States, and then you get a lot of attention, and maybe they feel like it's automatic. And that is unrealistic. I'm glad you pointed that out. J Bud says, "Be on the lookout for me, Aaron." Well, if you guys are there together, then we need to all get together. Big E and Cebu, I work at the U.S. Embassy from time to time. According to them, 30% of K-1 visa applicants were or are bar girls. That's a significant percentage. Just ask if you would marry an American prostitute. No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't either. And I don't know what the appeal of that is. Um, you don't have to marry a bar girl to marry a woman who is a good lover. Um, in fact, the bar girl is going to come with a lot more risk in terms of commitment, and risk in terms of STDs. And I know some will say, "Well, how dare you say that about bar girls? They have no choice but to work over there." And that's fine, but the Westerner certainly has choices in who he wants to invest the rest of his life in, and he's probably going to put some thought into that. Big E, I'd kind of like to. That would be a nice job too. I wouldn't mind processing these applications. I know a guy that did that for like 40 years, and it sounds like a great job. I don't know. Sounds like an interesting job anyway. Um, Big E, so a lot of common sense is needed, and being a bit picky. A bit picky. Well, maybe we should change the term a bit picky to just using your mind. Um, the picky is just a bad word. I just don't like that, because you have one shot at this person, and if you make a good choice because you maybe were looking for certain things and you're not going to look for certain things, that's your decision and you got to live with it. So you might as well scrutinize as well as you can without being so unrealistic that nobody, you know, uh, can live up to those standards. Um, but like I said before, I had some deal breakers. Tried not to have a lot of them, but the alcohol was one, because that's just the big one I've seen in growing up, and that was a big one for me. Um, Michael and Heidi, good to see you here, Michael. Uh, Biggie and Cebu, yeah, definitely. I think I have heard about 15 horror stories of expats' ignorance in the past 2 months. And well, if they live through something like that, they may decide that all women are like that, and every woman they come across is going to be a scammer, and they just don't have a chance. But there are couples that it does work out, and those are the people I think you want to talk to and learn from, and pick their brains and see what maybe help them to make a good choice. The big E in Cebu, unrealistic means this is a corrupt third world country. I've talked to guys on all I've talked to guys all the time who think the woman is perfect. Okay, and he is in la la land. The man just needs to keep it real. Yeah, she probably looks perfect if she's got brown skin and long black hair and big brown eyes, and small hands and feet, and luscious lips and so on. And what could be better? Um, nice accent, playful nature. What could be better? Well, probably not much. Um, but they are, like any woman, flawed, like any man, flawed. And I want to be realistic and love beyond the sea, and I want to be around a long time and talk about these sorts of things. I want to do more than just convince guys, hey, marry a Filipina, because then what? I think they have the right to say, well, okay, now what? What can you do to help me? Now that I found somebody and we got married, and we're dealing with tempo, we're dealing with sending money back home, we're dealing for being on social media all the time, or we don't talk, whatever. Um, yeah, we need to talk about those things, which is what I want to do. Yeah, and it's a corrupt country, and there's scamming, of course, and if you see some of the worst parts, the scamming becomes a little bit more understandable. It's not acceptable, but it becomes more understandable. J Bud, MGTOW lesson. Take notes now. All women have female nature. Women's lib and the media has brainwashed the American girls. They're taught never to be happy and to get control of a man with a good job. Well, it certainly is harder, J Bud, today. And there's a lot of people identifying as MGTOWs that feel the same way you do. The women's lib is feminism. I guess that's the same thing. That seems to be a cancer to me, to relations, and not good for women either. The media, the media. Now how many? Well, it's just like I don't watch too much TV, but it seems like when I do, the roles in reverse. The action heroes, the tough ones, are the strong ones are the women these days. That's what's in for some reason. I don't like to see that myself. Um, and then the guys take on, I don't know, a more docile, subservient role. And I don't believe that genders are interchangeable. Well, if they're growing up being taught feminism, then there's one option, guys. Go somewhere where feminism is not rampant, i.e., the Philippines. Yeah, Panay's haven't drank the Kool-Aid yet, Jay Bud, and that's a good thing. Get them while you can. We don't know how many years or decades it will take for a Western influence to infiltrate the mindset of the Philippines, but I think you almost have to assume that that's a real possibility at some time. You are the person you attract, Michael and Heidi. Um, and that's true. Uh, I mean, I think maybe some of the women I didn't get anywhere with could tell, well, I'm not like this guy. We would never uh, get things worked out, and I'm just too different. I'm more loose and irresponsible or whatever, and I actually want structure in my life, which I think marriage is a big part of. And you know, there just wasn't apparent compatibility. So I did find that when like I usually do, I just tried to use the same approach with the Philippines dating sites as I did in the United States dating sites, and that was to be open, honest, transparent, and explicit, and don't beat around the bush, and say what I was looking for. Imagine that. Um, the woman that became my wife was impressed with what I wrote and how it stood out, and she liked what I said, and she gave me a chance, and we got married. And it wasn't hard at all. Finding her, waiting for her was almost suicidal. I mean, it's just tough. And then Philippines, and it was very easy. Now, It's going to be harder when you're living with somebody, I think, than it is to find somebody. And those are things we need to talk about in my channel. So I agree with you, Michael. Big E and Cebu, with all the above said, and I've lived here for years, there are many, many good ones. Just have to be wise and realistic and picky. And anytime, Big E, you can share something here on Love Beyond the Sea along those lines, please do, because you're right there. And a lot of guys talking about or alluding to male role models as part of the crisis of young men today. They need good role models. They need people with some wisdom and to know what to look for in life. Because you can get around the wrong crowd and never realize there's a right crowd or a better crowd. And so people like you, and I'm sure you've had opportunity, Big E, and tried to help people that you met in the Philippines and help them to be wise. What is wisdom? Wisdom is the application of knowledge. So it's great to get knowledge, and that's what we need to do. But that's not the whole thing. What you have to do is top it off with applying that knowledge correctly. And that's the difference between being, smart and having a lot of facts and actually being wise, because a person could be intelligent and very foolish at the same time. Yeah, Michael and Heidi, use discernment. Change it from picky to wise and deliberative. And that's okay. I mean, somebody that's not thinking will just say, well, you're just being too picky. No, you have to deliberate over your options. You're talking about a lifelong decision, or one that if it doesn't go like that can be extremely harsh financially, mentally, and emotionally. So, with what's at stake, you should consider the attributes of the person that's caught your eye, and you should have some must-haves. You should know what you can't compromise on. Big E and Cebu, I really like what you're doing with your videos. Most sensible and balanced videos and advice I've seen on YouTube. Well, that's a fine compliment, Big E. I appreciate that. I am married to a Filipina. We've been married 4.5 years. We got married in, less than 8 weeks, and we've kind of had to figure out how to not just exist together, but mesh together, relate together. And I'm telling you, it's not always easy. And you guys know that. But again, the man that says, "Oh, she's perfect," and the Filipina have this great reputation. Well, that's all well and good, but it still takes some sacrifice, and not always getting your own way, and being patient and being forgiving, and living like you're married and you're not single now. I've said that to my wife. Well, you're not single anymore. That affects the way we make decisions. I'm not single anymore. That's going to affect the decisions I make. In fact, I've said this before, don't get mad at me, but boys do what they want to do, and men do what they have to do. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's just a lot of responsibility, especially as we talked about earlier, if you decide to have children, and then that's what happens. Okay, parabiology, that's okay. No problem popping in and out, as long as your back doesn't do that. But I think you're using it in a different sense. Biggie and Cebu, I agree with you. Be picky, and yes, I think Bob has a lot of wisdom. I appreciate that, parabiology. Mr. E and I have been collaborating because Mr. E and I we both feel the same way. We feel that something's missing in the lives of young men. These are males that have the most life left in them. They have the most potential for return because they're younger. Um, I just, wasting time is not a good idea, and that's why I say I would get married as soon as I could. I would have if I could have, but you can end up, it's like the frog, in the in the pot. The water starts to boil, and he doesn't realize that the water is getting hotter, and he can get scalded, um, because it goes by so slowly. And you're 20 years old, 22 years old, thinking, maybe I'll get serious about a relationship someday. And then you're 50 years old, and it's like, my goodness, all the women want is, I'm too old for women my age now. They want younger guys. And where did the time go? And the time is going to go faster every decade of your life. My mother's 86, and she says the 80s go faster than the 70s, and the 70s go faster than the 60s. I can believe that. I can believe that. So, how much time do you have left in your life? Any man should consider that. What are your options where you are? What are the options where you aren't? And, Mr. E and I are both big believers in what he would call offshoring your love. That's a big solution. I mean, it worked for me in not even 8 weeks. I can't believe it, but it's true. Bud 5000, the U.S. dating scene is corrupt. American girls play a lot more skill games than the Filipinas. Wow. All you divorced guys, guess what? You got played, and it costs you a lot more dollars than a Panay will scam you. Well, and that's, the Filipina doesn't grow up thinking, well, I'm just going to fleece my husband someday and get rich. They just want somebody that can increase their standard of living, a couple of levels, and so they don't have to starve, and so mom and papa don't have to struggle. Because there is, I don't know if you would call it age discrimination in the Philippines, but it's not like here where we have people working in their 60, 65 years old. Over there, I don't know that even happens all that much. The U.S. dating scene, there's definitely something wrong with it. I don't like games. I guess that's why I just came out. And a guy I know from way, way back in the 90s was married, and I told him I was using these dating sites, and he said, well, I wouldn't use those dating sites, but if I did, he said, I would be explicit and come out and just be real clear about what I'm there for and what I'm looking for. And I thought, well, that's what I'll do too. And years later, with Christian Filipina, that's what I did. If it was rejected, it was rejected. But that might just be the bait that the right person needs. We're talking about like attracting like. Well, I'll tell them what I'm like, and that will either turn somebody off, which is fine. Rejection is okay. It just will help speed you up getting to the right person. But there is a lot wrong with the way American girls are being influenced. You can probably say they don't have the type of female influences that they would benefit from. American girls want to try to control you. Well, I don't control my wife, but I do tell her, and she must realize that I'm responsible in our marriage. I'm responsible to God. I'm not going to blame her, because God's going to hold me accountable. So I better fix things, do things more, do things less, do things better. um, change things, whatever, drop things, start things. I have to adjust and adapt and get to know her and understand her and do whatever it takes for the relationship to be successful. And you know what? Just being responsible for one person, at work anymore, each supervisor must have 30, 40, 50 people to be responsible for, which you can't. It's just too many. In marriage, you got to be responsible for one person, your wife. And it's hard. Sometimes it's not. Many times it is. But I want to take responsibility for the relationship. And I want her to know that I take responsibility. And the only time that's really going to cause an issue is if we have some divisive situation, a decision that needs to be made, and we just can't get on the same page. Um, then I have to make perhaps an unpopular decision and say, I'm sorry, but this is what we're going to do. I've heard you out. We've talked about it, discussed it. You know what I feel about it, and I just can't do that. And I think that if the rest of the time, you're good to her and you're not controlling, she can understand that and say, okay, I can accept that. That's what I want to do. Yeah, popping in and out of chat. I wish your back would go in. Well, hopefully that's all it is. I got bulging discs. Doesn't even sound good, but my neck doesn't hurt, but my back kind of does. And I go numb on this arm when I roll that way, and this arm goes numb when I roll that way. Hard to tell, back or neck. So frustrating. But before we go to the Philippines, that's why I'm checking into it now. I know it's bad, but we need to keep a close eye on it, because if there's ever time that we need to go in and do a surgery, I think this guy is well thought of and young enough still that he could still help me if I need to get something done surgically before we go. And I hope your back is better. Merrick Salvagudo, hopefully your back will be okay, Poe. Merrick Salvagudo, I have not seen you here before, but I welcome you to this live chat on Love Beyond the Sea. David Miller, is there a David Miller in the house that I missed? I certainly hope not. Michael and Heidi, American female dominance are a product of feminism, which is a curse and ungodly. I agree. But what is the real sin, feminism or the men who stood by and let it happen in America? 1960s. That sounds like a Mr. E topic there. Yeah, well, you guys can hash that out here. It's getting a little bit too late for me to put my mind on that. But strong leadership male leadership has to stand up when things aren't right, even if that means disappointing some people. And that's easier said than done. But yeah, why? I don't know enough about all the dynamics of why this happened, but if we went from a male leadership strength to now more women dominance, then that would seem to imply a weakness somewhere on the part of the guys. And now it's like a runaway train, and people are rightfully frightened to get involved with somebody, because especially if they've been hurt before, they don't know that they're not going to be hurt again. That's a very bad, paralyzing position to be in. Michael and Heidi, who said that originally? Parabiology 101 asks. Again, I appreciate everybody being here tonight. As always, we start off talking about something, and that's good. Mr. E's commentary on the crisis of young men today. And but we're always here to talk about whatever you, the viewer, would like to talk about. I mean, we could do this every day if I had, of course, a lot of the regulars would get tired of that. But I like doing the live streams because then, you can interact with me on the run, which is a good thing. Yeah, uh, just came from me at the moment. Many blessings. You head back to work. Thanks, Big E. If I miss a week due to vacation, I feel like I've been gone 6 months. I'm always restless and nervous if I just miss a week, even. And 2 weeks is even worse. It's been 10 weeks. And I don't know why at a place I've worked for 39 years, I get so uptight when I miss work, but I do, and it's going to be hard to sleep tonight. I had two, what I call sleep episode instances last night where I wake up, you know, with a bad dream and Aiza has to, slap me to wake me up. And it happened twice. And I don't know. It doesn't always happen when I'm uptight, but I think they think it's just a hereditary thing and nothing I can do about it, I guess. But you're scared to death when you can't wake yourself up. I mean, you are awake, I guess, but you can't go all the way up, wake up, and you're scared. You're dreaming a bad dream, and you know what's going on, and you know you got to wake up, and you know you can't, and you can't yell because your throat is still asleep. Maybe your eyes can move, and then she hears me making enough noise, and she knows to push me or slap me or do something, and that is a great blessing because this has gone on my whole life, and it's no fun. I hope you never have to experience sleep paralysis. But I hope I get back in the groove, Big E, and I appreciate your comments tonight. Um, Trump scored a foreign hottie and apparently has healthy children, right? For having, I don't know how many children he has, but he did have a child in older age. And we were kind of talking about that earlier today. Um, yeah, that could happen. Could happen to me. We'll be raising them in the Philippines, though, which is another consideration of all the things that you need to think about when having children in an age gap relationship. Um, the closer we get to that point, then really the more likely we are to say, okay, well, we're going to raise them in the Philippines, even if they end up being born here. Melanie or Hillary, Bill would like the Philippines. A lot of us found what we're looking for in the Philippines. I appreciate the 12 people still online tonight. Ask me anything you want. If you want to open up about crisis of young men, you want to talk about role models, what it's like not having a role model, uh, what you wish you could have in a role model. Maybe you had a role model and you want to talk about why that was a good thing in your life. Because I think we need mentors, and I think women need solid women to mentor them too. Parabiology 101, I thought you meant it was 760s. Yeah, misinterpreted. A famous one. Well, maybe Michael's comment will be a famous one. And he's referring to something back in the 60s where feminism started to come onto the scene, and then it gets overlooked, and men probably didn't like it. Maybe they didn't see it as a threat. Then it became a real threat, and then maybe nothing was really done about it. And now we have the problems we have today. J. Bud, single mom homes and mostly female school teachers teaching boys not to be masculine. Well, they need the father. Um, they just do. Fathers are needed. Those fathers don't have to be don't have to be perfect fathers. They're not going to be. But that young child that's going to grow up to be a young man and then an older man needs to be led, and they need to be led by someone like them who used to be a young man and can teach them things that they need to know. And there's a place for both the mother and the father, but it's just not a good situation to have the mother be the only one there. And some of the things that are taught in schools today is just ridiculous anyway. And I don't know, it's a bad situation, but we don't want to just be about complaining. We always want to be about finding how to make things better. And love beyond the sea, that's about finding love. As I even dare to talk about what love is, it's not, I don't think it's a feeling, it's action. It involves loss of yourself. It always will. And it's hard. It's very rewarding. It puts the other person first. And if you want to be married, stay married to a Filipina or any other woman. There are some things that need to happen. And if both are just looking after themselves, it's going to crumble. So that's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about a real marriage and the ups and downs. We do have the community corner message forums that is linked way up there at the top, along with the newsletter link, how you can get update on the next live sent to your email address. And but we can have private chats over there. You can certainly leave comments in the lifestyle lounge or relationship lounge. Check those out, see what they're about. There is some activity in there, not enough to get the furniture dusty, but there is some action going on in the community corner. And ultimately, years and years down the road, I'd like to see that as a place where men can go and talk about self-improvement, talk about being encouraging. What can they do in light of the circumstances that they face today? A place where, not about excuses, but solutions, and certainly a place to vent, because we all need that. And that's what I want to do. I do want to target, well, it's hard to say, to be honest with you. I'm relatively new, and I think there's a high ceiling for this channel, because essentially I'm trying to help young men think about the Philippines overseas, because I know they don't grow up that way. They grow up thinking they're going to find somebody, of course, in the West. Maybe they need to start thinking about maybe they won't. I mean, it's a possibility. And guys that are married or middle-aged guys, I want to help. So it's all about helping men with relationship with Filipinas. I hope that in time, algorithm catches on, and certainly people that are watching this channel, not everybody a lot of the people that watch are not subscribers, so I encourage people to subscribe if they get something out of the channel. Go ahead and share the videos, or at least tell other people that hey, this isn't a typical Philippines genre channel, but the guy is married to a Filipina. They got married real quick. The guy was almost foolish, married her in less than 8 weeks. Had been alone all those years. I think he must have had brain problems or something, and got desperate. But maybe there's a method to his madness. It's worked out, and I want other people to find somebody as well. And I don't plan on giving up until I die. So I'm in it for the long haul. This is very important to me, and that's why I do try to be prepared about these live streams and the uploads. I don't want to just put something out there to put it out there. And I mentioned this before on this chat. I've seen it in the church. Many churches like Laodicea, and that is a problem. Yeah, when the world has entered the church and certain things are tolerated, well, that's not as bad as it gets, because the church needs to be the place that stands up against all immorality and injustice and so on. J. Bud MGTOW lesson: statistically, most American mass shooters came from homes without fathers. Very easy to understand, or to see that being the case. Yeah, Michael Knight says my pastor actually brought out those statistics a few months ago. Is it going to get better? And is there any reason to think it's going to get better? They don't seem to have, I almost said they don't seem to have those mass shooting problems in the Philippines, unless it's Abu Sayyaf militant group. This seems to be more contentment and acceptance over there. And I think the women there are not picky there like they are here, certainly not picky with one's appearance. I don't think they have a long list of must-haves and requirements that give most any guy a chance in the Philippines. So if you want to know more about that, please run through my videos. I got about 330 videos, and I got a lot more. We'll go to the Philippines, show you what that's like. My mother lives with us. We're going to be living with some of my wife's family. If nothing more than the curiosity aspect, I would hope people would tune in here. But this is an educational channel, so I have to be prepared to teach. And do they have the shooting problem in the U.S. private schools versus public schools? Well, I wouldn't think so. There has to be a correlation between this and suicides and not doing things the way they are designed to be. A committed mother and father, modeling that to their kids, showing them that they come first, teaching them right from wrong. Meaning the parents come first. The marriage is always more important than anything else, because if that goes, everything else crumbles. So that marriage has to be number one, and the children need to know it. They don't come before the mother and father. I don't think so. So, gentlemen, it may be time to call it an evening. And I'm glad for everybody that could be here tonight. Again, if you want to know when I plan on doing another live stream, we have a newsletter set up. You just click on that link, put your email address there. It adds it to the list. And then when I put that together, then it will go to your email. And as far as I know, it is functioning properly. And so that way, might go out 24 hours or so before the live stream. Just have to make sure I'm going to have one. So that's just another thing that Mr. E has done to help get people to stay in touch. As he designed the WordPress, lovebeyondthesea.wordpress.com site, where everything is there: Twitter, Facebook, the videos, my wife's channel, Mr. E comments, a way to contact us, and the message forums, the lifestyle lounge, the relationship lounge, all right there in one place. So it's been a pleasure, everybody. Thank you for being here on no uh, announcement. But like I said, there is a way to find out. It's easy to get lost in the notifications if you have a lot of channels that you have notifications for. So that would just come right in your email. Now, if if anyone has another comment to make, something burning desire in your mind, please let me know. Otherwise, it may be a week or so before we get together again. And if not, consider going over to the community corner and looking around. And hopefully, one day we've got people from all over the place using that as a message forum about relationships with women overseas. Adios, amigo. Jay Bud, thanks for being here. Michael and Heidi, everybody on up down the line. Um, and until next time, you guys have a good day at work. I'm going to be joining the working ranks again tomorrow. So, not totally crazy about that, but you get spoiled being at home. But thank you for joining me, everybody, tonight. And you have a good rest of the day and a good week, too. This is Bob on Love Beyond the Sea.